The term Golden Triangle typically refers to two distinct regions, one in Southeast Asia known for its opium production, and another in South Asia that forms a major tourist circuit. I'll provide an overview of both to cover the bases. In Southeast Asia, the Golden Triangle is a notorious region where the borders of Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar, Burma, converge. This area has historically been one of the world's largest opium-producing regions, alongside Afghanistan. The origins of the Golden Triangle's association with the opium trade can be traced back to the 19th century. During the British colonial period in India, the British East India Company promoted the cultivation of opium poppies in India and facilitated the opium trade with China. This trade led to the Opium Wars in the mid-19th century, as China sought to curb the widespread addiction and social issues caused by opium. As the demand for opium grew, cultivation spread to the highlands of Southeast Asia. The remote, mountainous regions of Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand proved ideal for growing opium poppies. The term Golden Triangle was coined in the 1920s by the CIA to describe this opium-producing region. During the Vietnam War, the CIA played a controversial role in the Golden Triangle. Seeking to fund anti-communist forces in the region, the CIA allegedly supported and even transported opium to finance these operations. This involvement further entrenched the Golden Triangle's role in the global opium trade. In recent decades, efforts by local governments and international organizations have aimed to reduce opium production in the Golden Triangle. Alternative development programs, law enforcement, and eradication efforts have been implemented. Additionally, the global drug trade has shifted, with Afghanistan becoming the dominant opium producer. Heroin, derived from morphine, is an opioid originally developed for medical use, but later became a significant illicit substance. The history of heroin production is intertwined with the broader history of opium and morphine, tracing back to ancient times and progressing through periods of scientific discovery, medical use, and widespread abuse. Opium, the raw material from which heroin is derived, has been used for thousands of years. The Sumerians, around 3400 BCE, are believed to have cultivated opium poppies. The use of opium spread to ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome, where it was used for its analgesic properties and as a remedy for various ailments. By the early 20th century, concerns over addiction led to increased regulation. The United States passed the Harrison Narcotics Tax Act in 1914, which regulated and taxed the production and distribution of opiates and coca products. This act marked the beginning of legal restrictions on heroin in the US. Despite legal restrictions, heroin production and trafficking continued to grow. Throughout the 20th century, organized crime syndicates played a significant role in the global heroin trade. The French Connection, a heroin smuggling operation that transported heroin from Turkey to France and then to the United States, became infamous in the 1960s and 1970s. Similarly, the rise of the Sicilian Mafia and other organized crime groups in the heroin trade highlighted the challenges of combating illicit drug trafficking. In recent decades, heroin production and use have continued to evolve. Afghanistan has become the world's largest producer of illicit opium, with much of its production controlled by the Taliban and various warlords. The global heroin trade has also been influenced by synthetic opioids, such as fentanyl, which are often mixed with or sold as heroin, exacerbating the opioid crisis. Heroin processing in Southeast Asia, particularly within the Golden Triangle, has been a significant aspect of the region's illicit drug trade. The process begins with the cultivation of opium poppies, which are typically grown in the highland areas of Myanmar, Laos, and northern Thailand. Farmers plant the poppies in the fall, and the plants are ready for harvesting in late spring. The opium poppy, Papaver somniferum, produces a latex sap that contains morphine, the precursor to heroin. Harvesting opium involves scoring the poppy pods with a multi-bladed tool to allow the latex sap to ooze out. This sap, called raw opium, is collected by hand over several days as it dries and thickens on the surface of the pod. The raw opium is then gathered into small lumps or cakes and left to dry further. To convert raw opium into morphine, which is a necessary step before heroin production, the opium is dissolved in hot water. The mixture is filtered to remove plant debris and other impurities, resulting in a solution containing morphine. This solution is then treated with lime, calcium oxide, to precipitate the morphine, which is collected, washed, and dried into a morphine base. The morphine base undergoes a chemical process to become heroin. This involves several steps. First, the morphine base is mixed with acetic anhydride in a controlled reaction. This process converts morphine into diacetylmorphine, also known as heroin. The reaction mixture is then heated to facilitate the acetylation process. After acetylation, the mixture is neutralized with water and baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, to stop the reaction. The solution is then filtered to remove impurities and unwanted byproducts. The resulting liquid is allowed to cool, and the heroin base precipitates out. The precipitated heroin base is collected, washed, and filtered to remove any remaining impurities. The heroin base can be further purified to produce a higher grade of heroin, known as heroin hydrochloride, which is soluble in water and suitable for injection. The final product, either in the form of heroin base or heroin hydrochloride, is then dried and packaged for distribution. Heroin produced in the Golden Triangle is often transported through various routes to international markets. These routes can be overland, through neighboring countries, or by sea and air. The heroin is typically trafficked by organized crime groups, which use sophisticated methods to evade law enforcement. The heroin trade has had a profound impact on the Golden Triangle region. It has fueled violence, corruption, and instability, as various groups, including insurgents and criminal organizations, vie for control over the lucrative trade. The local communities involved in opium cultivation often depend on the income from opium production, despite efforts by governments and international organizations to promote alternative livelihoods and reduce opium cultivation. Governments in the region, along with international agencies, have made various efforts to combat heroin production and trafficking. These include crop substitution programs, law enforcement operations, and international cooperation. However, the persistence of poverty, lack of infrastructure, and ongoing conflict in some areas make it challenging to eliminate opium cultivation and heroin production entirely. Beyond the cultivation of poppies, this region offers an astonishingly scenic landscape, composed of a mosaic of hill and lowland tribal communities that have thrived here for centuries. These indigenous cultures have endured the opium trade and now flourish as self-sustaining villages throughout the area. Providing travelers with a unique glimpse into their way of life, the camp is dedicated to outreach tours and immersive experiences that support the locals and generate valuable income for the villagers, she explains. Heritage sites and temples are dotted all over the riverbanks, with highlights of the ancient city of Chung Sayen, known for its historic ruins and temples. Visitors can also visit the magnificent Wat Phra That Doi Wao at Mai Sai by boat, where the gilded pagoda and panoramic views into Myanmar are a sight to behold. Thank you for joining us on this episode, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.